I am on page 30 of the book for this lesson, and we are looking at a map of the world marked here. This map is a little misleading because it makes the northern hemisphere, or the stuff above this line, look much bigger than the southern hemisphere, and that is not to scale. The map is correct, but it looks a little bit skewed. I wish it did a better job of showing us equal halves above and below this line. But it will work for what we need. I found it online on a free clip art site, and it was as clear as I could find. The first thing I want to do is to go through this with you, and let's label some of the parts here that are so important. I'm not going to color them, but I will label them as clearly as I can using a different color of pencil. So the first thing I want to label is this line itself. This is called the equator. You can capitalize it if you want. It doesn't matter. It can go either way. So the equator means that this imaginary line, I can't drive to the equator or fly or sail to the equator and stand there. It is an imaginary line on the globe that divides the earth into north and south. So above the equator is the northern hemisphere, and below the equator is the southern hemisphere. So the equator divides it north to south. And there's another line that we need to know. It's not shown in this picture, but we're going to draw it in. I'm going to use blue to draw this line about right here. That's not quite right, but it's close enough. And this is called the prime meridian. Prime, capitalized, meridian. Oops. Still on shape mode. And this line divides the earth into east and west. So this is the east, the eastern hemisphere, and we live in the western hemisphere. So north, south, east, and west are determined by these two main lines. And again, they're both imaginary lines. You can't physically touch them or see them because they're just on a map. Okay, I want you to know that there are 7 continents and 5 oceans. So let's do our continents first, and I'm going to start with North America. We in North America tend to sometimes act like we are the only people here. But in fact, North America, north because we're above the equator, includes the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So when you say North America, you're not just talking about the United States. You are talking about all of us on this continent, this chunk of land. So if that's North America, below the equator is South America. And in Columbus's day, if you've heard of Christopher Columbus in 1492, Columbus didn't know this land was here, North or South America. He thought that the world just looked like that, and he was trying to find a shorter route to get from this point over to this point without doing this trip. Columbus wanted to come in from this side. He thought that would be shorter because he didn't know that the Americas were sitting there. So those 2 continents were discovered later in the scheme of things. Let's zoom in. Here is a 3rd continent. There's no specific order, but this is Europe. Europe is connected to this massive chunk of land. This is the biggest continent of Asia. And let me move Asia over. Asia is really the big one. So I'm going to make it. You have China, Japan, India, Russia, in Asia. So there are 4 of them. This one is Africa. And then this one is Australia. You may have heard of the big wildfires that just destroyed much of Australia. The 7th one is not drawn on here, so I'm going to draw it myself down here at the bottom. Well, that didn't work too well, did it? So let me just put it down here. The South Pole is the continent of Antarctica. Most maps will show it Antarctica, but this one doesn't. It didn't draw the land mass down there. So there are 7 land masses, 7 continents, and there they are. There are 5 oceans that I want you to know about. And up here is the Arctic Ocean. That is extremely hard to see, so let's try again. Try this one. And I'll zoom. Arctic Ocean is North Pole, roughly. So this is the Arctic Ocean. These are capitalized, as are the continents. Remember when we talked about our colonies, which were founded right in here, we said that this ocean was the Atlantic Ocean. If you're in Florida, you're looking at the Atlantic Ocean. If you're in California, you're looking at the Pacific Ocean. And because our world is round, you're also looking at that same ocean if you're over here in Japan. So we need to put the Pacific Ocean on both sides. It's the same ocean, but the world is a ball. So that's where we're going to overlap. Pacific is the largest ocean. Here's India right in here. So this is the Indian Ocean. This is where the Malaysian airliner went down a few years ago and was never found. And then this ocean that runs down here is called the Southern. This one was just named in, I want to think, the year 2000. It hasn't, if you grew up when I did, you probably did not learn about that one at school. So let me highlight the continents for you. I'm going to annotate this map. The continents are North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica. And the oceans are the Arctic, the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Southern, and the Indian. And the Pacific is also over there, but I want you to know there are 5, so I won't highlight that twice. This is a general outline of the map of the world. You need to know this information, guys. You need to memorize what's on this map. A high school graduate should know the continents and the oceans and be able to find them on a map. Okay, for this bottom part, I wanted to list the 7 wonders that we have been talking about, our key words that we highlighted in our passage. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll find them on the map. So the first one we talked about was the Great Wall of China. So I'm just going to fill in the 7 wonders of the world, and I am going to look back at my my reading page so that I get them in the right order. I want them to go. Okay, then we had Chichen Itza. We had the city of Petra. We had Machu Picchu. need to check my spelling. I know I have trouble with that one. Then we have the Christ the Redeemer statue. That needs to be underlined. It's the name of a statue. Any work of art will be underlined or in quotes, depending on how big it is. This one is huge, so it's going to be underlined or italicized. And then we have the Colosseum. I need to check my spelling on this one too, because I have trouble with that. I got it right that time. And then the Taj Mahal. Okay, obviously the Great Wall of China is in China. And China is in Asia. So our continent that goes with China is Asia. And you have these on your matrix. Remember, we added some things that were not in the passage. This is what I was telling you because I knew we were going to need these for this diagram. Chichen Itza is in Mexico. That's the country. Mexico is our neighbor in North America. So the continent for Chichen Itza is North America. Petra is in the city of Jordan. The country of Jordan. Petra is the city, and Jordan is on the continent of Asia. Machu Picchu is in Peru. Peru is in South America. Andes Mountains. Christ the Redeemer. It gave me the city and the country for this one. So let's Rio de Janeiro. Have to check the spelling. I always want to do IE. That is in Brazil. And that continent is South America. The Colosseum is in Rome. That is a city in Italy. And Italy is in Europe. The Taj Mahal is in a city called Agra, in a country called India, on the continent of Asia. So this helps you to find those places on the world map. I know that we didn't have any of these wonders of the world in Africa. That is the one continent, well, there are three continents that are not mentioned. The Great Pyramid of Giza is in Africa, so it is in this African continent. We don't have anything in Antarctica because it is so very cold. There are some research stations there, but not a lot of things other than that. Australia has some pretty cool stuff. One of them that comes to mind is the Great Coral Reef. That is not something that man made. So let me show you a picture just so you know. In Australia is a fascinating place to me. I think I would very much like to visit there. So here are some images of this great coral reef underwater in Australia. There's a good image of the Great Barrier Reef in Queensland. So Australia has some really awesome things. But it doesn't happen to have one of the wonders that we read about. And one reason that I think this is true, that's important to note, is that civilization the world as we know it began in this middle area here. So really I need to, right in there is where a lot of our history is centered. And as time went on, people moved out from that middle central area. So as time goes on, they're settling in further regions from that center of civilization. Main thing here that I want you to memorize is this top part. You don't need to memorize the bottom. We can read that and find that information. But you need to know this picture right here. You need to be able to label the world map. So I'll try to find some exercises to post with the course that you can do on the computer that let you practice your map skills, because this is important to know. I'm going to make a note to find those. All right, I will see you soon for something new and exciting, and I hope you have a great day until then. Bye bye.